Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing with myself, Jonny McFarlane, and joining me today, as ever, is a fresh-faced young talent that is Joshua Barrie. Welcome, Joshua.
Good to be here. Good to be speaking with about such positivity, Jonny. I think this is maybe one of the few times this season where there's little to no criticism or negativity. So it's.
I don't know about that. I'm sure we can find some somewhere.
You can. I'm focusing on the 6 goals, so you take it away.
Yeah, no, I'll pull my mic in because it wasn't there. So if I sounded pretty bad, that'll be why. Let's get stuck into this game. It's not often we have a 6-1 win for Rangers to chew over, is it? So, As you say, there's plenty of positives. And we'll start with those because they vastly outweigh any negatives from this game. Now, the first one that jumps out, the performance of James Tavernier. The captain himself stood up when it counted in this game, didn't he, Joshua?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, there's so many positives to speak about the team in general. Stephen Gerrard said it was nearly inch perfect, which I thought was a good kind of way to wrap it all up. Tavernier, for me, again, he's made somewhat of an error. We don't know what happens for the mix-up for the goal. It could be that Goldson shouts he's going to get it. We're not on the pitch. For me, the way he takes that first goal is just unbelievable. When it's his birthday, he's made the mistake. 90% of players would probably put their head down, pass on responsibility, but the technique for that is just ridiculous. You could argue its case is his best Rangers goal, and I'm thinking I might start to do that because I just thought it was an amazing strike. But then again, he steps up with a top quality delivery again, and you look back to the Aberdeen game, the St Mirren game, even his involvement against Alish Kurt to provide for Morelos, his winner against St Johnstone. Because of Nathan Patterson, it sometimes gets questioned whether he should be in the team, but he always needs to be in that team because he's one of the best players, and the technique for that first goal was just absolutely ridiculous, and it completely changes the tone in a very, very similar way to the St Mirren game last week. Rangers tip a game on its head by half-time, but this time they decided to keep attacking, keep going, and get 4 more goals.
Yeah, and we can't go much further into this video without mentioning Mr. Fashion himself, Fashion Sakala.
Yeah.
What a performance, and what a way to announce yourself as a Rangers player. I think 2 days after Chris Boyd was questioning whether he was good enough to make any kind of impact at Ibrox. That's a way to really put a marker down and say, no, I'm here and I'm serious about this.
Yeah, and also he played, I think he'd made 2 league starts before this, or 3. I mean, I presume that Boyd's maybe just, it's just something to say, but
I was having the same conversation with someone on Twitter about 3 days ago when they were ripping into me for a piece that I wrote last week, and they were saying, well, you've not mentioned the poor recruitment. And I thought to myself, well, I think John Lundstrom has shown enough to suggest that he's going to be a useful player at the very, very, very least, if you're being uncharitable.
Yeah.
And Fashion Sakala, it's far too early. And he said, oh, no, Fashion Sakala's not going to make it as a Rangers player.
I know, and that was the chat with Lundstrom as well, wasn't it? But
the
thing is, now you look at the recruitment lens after yesterday, you look at Lundstrom, who, had a difficult game against Aberdeen, but he made 3 man of the match performances at the 6 before that. You look at the retention of Glenn Kamara, and you look at signing a player like Fashion Sakala. And again, that was literally the only involvement he's had in other games is coming on against Dundee away, St Johnstone away, St Mirren away, all trying to see a game out, and that's difficult. And having been at all these games, watching the difference in him yesterday, it's just he almost needed to be coached through a few of those games because it's such a coming on defending a 1-goal lead in Scottish football away from home is such a niche kind of environment. You've got the whole crowd on you, a bobbly pitch, the management staff screaming at you to get off the pitch, and Sakala yesterday just gave Rangers absolutely everything they've been missing because he was direct, he was fast, he was excellent one-on-one. Stephen Gerrard spoke about how they can't replace Ryan Kent when he's not there yesterday, but Sakala offered a complete different threat in a way because he was so direct, almost what Kent can do when he chooses to simplify his game. You looked at him, and we wrote a piece about, I wrote a piece about the driving wingers at the weekend. You look at Sakala in that last 15 minutes when he goes past McGinley twice down the line in an old-fashioned traditional sense and creates 2 excellent chances because he can isolate his pace one-on-one. He terrorised Stephen O'Donnell before O'Donnell had to go off. Worked well with Morelos. Is that the first time they've started together? I think it probably is. And Morelos. I thought they complemented one another really well. Morelos' run for that second goal occupies Stephen O'Donnell allows the creation of that space for Sakala to go into. So for me yesterday, it was just exciting and it was fun to watch. And I think a large part of that was down to Sakala, and he should take a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, and I suppose the notion that Roof and Sakala and Morelos, if the two of those three are playing up front together, Sakala is the one that gives you something completely different. So you've got Morelos dovetailing with someone who's got pace, which presumably makes a bit of a difference because they're not on top of each other's toes all the time. Morelos is coming deep, Sakala's going long.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think that really the only time Morelos and Roof will work together is in a game where you're guaranteed that you're going to get up the pitch without having to kind of fight for it. So against Aberdeen, because they sat high and they knew that Rangers had a lack of pace, it was difficult. Hibs in the second half, obviously it's 10 men, but it's a good example of when a team sits in and Roof and Morelos both score in the box. I think that aside, you do just need something different, especially when you've got Hadji there, who obviously isn't going to stretch the game in behind. And Sakala, it wasn't even so much that he just stretched the game in behind, but he provided a real nice natural width off the left, and he just gave Stephen O'Donnell no chance on more than one occasion. And I thought his link up with Barrie, not even in terms of passing, but the way that Barrie overlaps for that second goal, and obviously for O'Donnell's second yellow card as well, was excellent. And then, Sakala, the impressive thing is he moves to the right and he does the exact same thing. I think what yesterday showed Jonny is that he probably is better off a central striker, and maybe allows him to isolate himself one-on-one with a man more. And Morelos in the middle worked well with that because, as we know, Morelos can create room. I thought he had a decent game yesterday. Obviously, he didn't really trouble the goal, but he protected the ball and moved it well, quite well. And then Roof comes on and gets you the goal as well. So, yeah, just a real positive. And I think you look at the prospect of, I thought Joe Rebo was good yesterday, but you look at the prospect of Kent, Sakala and Morelos front three. What have Rangers been really bad at? Attacking in transition. They just look so blunt without Ryan Kent there. Just even at times within this season, I thought that's been one of the most disappointing aspects of their play. You look at the prospect of a team, if they've got to face Sakala and Kent on either flank, that's a scary thought, and I don't envy those fullbacks.
Lots of comments coming in, folks. Alan Kelly saying, morning, guys. Rachel Hunter saying, needed that win yesterday after Tuesday's heartbreak. I think we can all agree with that. Great performance yesterday, says Gary Clark. Hopefully that's a set of standards again. Alan Kelly coming back again, saying Sakala was brilliant. He needed yesterday. I think we both think that's spot on. Colin Cameron with an interesting one here. Quite clear that Tav turned the game around yesterday and he needs to be moved to an attacking midfield role, which would bring Nathan Patterson at the right back. It's something John Gregg did in the past. Not sure I agree with that, to be honest, Joshua. I think those roles are actually very, very different. And we've seen little glimpses, little cameo appearances of Tavernier in that role in a couple of games. And it's very, very different. I've seen him perform really, really well there. I think against Celtic under Graham Murty in one of the games, the one at Celtic Park. He was terrific, so he can do it. But I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, we look back. I understand what Colin's saying. I think you look back to what Stephen Gerrard said when he was asked about this in pre-season, and he said that Tavernier's strength isn't playing with his back to goal. So I think if you incorporate Patterson and Tavernier in the same team, you've got to get them in areas where they're comfortable receiving the ball. The way I think you do that is, again, you look at Tavernier's assists. The ball that led to the penalty, how kind of in field he was. He can play make from those types of areas. We see it with so many right backs around the world. So for me, it would be if Rangers were to kind of move to something of a back three, but have him as the advanced centre back, and it would just allow Nathan Patterson then to play as a right wing back, allow him to maintain the width, and Tavernier to pick up those nice positions that I think Colin's referring to, the positions in field.
Yeah,
but I think they'd be better coming from when he's coming on to the ball instead of receiving the ball with his back to goal. So whether that's a possibility, we don't know. I mean, I thought yesterday was a great example of the individualism that Gerrard and Beale talk about, bringing variation within that system. I think the development of another shape in terms of that Tavernier Patterson thing has to work at some point. You also look back to Gerrard's comments where he said that they're too good to have them both on the bench. Nathan Patterson, I would argue, isn't playing probably enough football, or hasn't yet. And especially with Tavernier being the captain and in form, there probably still needs to be a resolution of how they're played together. And I think that would do that and would allow Tavernier to pick up those nice pockets in field. But I don't like the idea of him playing with his back to goal. I think that kind of takes away a lot of his strengths.
Gavin Sloan brings up a very, very good point that we've not actually got round to yet. Gavin, it is on my list. Stephen Davis was superb, ran the game. He was peerless again yesterday, wasn't he?
Yeah. And you look at, I mean, Gerard, when he was asked about that on Rangers TV, he was asked about Sakala, and the first thing he did was speak about Davis. And you just seen admiration from Stephen Gerrard in terms of midfield performance, which for Stephen Davis is, you can't get much better praise than that. I think what what he did well in the first half, Jonny, was he protected Balogun well, and what I mean by that is if Balogun was pulled out by Shields, he covered the space. It was a lot of little interceptions he made in the box, but also when there were second balls falling off, he was there to maintain pressure, and that's such an important role we've got. We've written about that before, about kind of his role in Rangers' rest defence, which basically means how you your structure of your team looks so that you can maintain pressure and break teams down, as Rangers did for a good few of those goals yesterday. His involvement in Sakala's second goal is probably the most impressive thing I think he does, because he has the awareness to let the ball run through him. And if he stops the ball, if he turns, the move can't flow side to side vertically as it does, but because he allows the ball to run through him, because he knows what's behind him, he knows he's got the space to do that, and he can play the ball wide. That gives Sakala the time and space to cut in the field. It means that the move's still flowing, and Motherwell haven't been able to get back into shape, which is why Stephen O'Donnell gets taken out by Bassey's run. And again, that's wouldn't get put down as an assist, probably wouldn't even get measured, but I thought that was just a fantastic impact by him, and his assist as well. Let's not forget that. I mean, that was deft, wasn't it, to curl the ball into the toe of Sakala. So yeah, and excellent that we've got the option of Lundstram and Davis now. Lundstram's had excellent games. Davis offers something a little bit different, but we're able to keep him fresh now. Rangers are able to kind of rotate in such a way that he can go and put in performances like that. So I think that'll be really encouraging for the coaching staff.
We've touched on a lot of the positives, Josh. I just want to ask you a little bit about the thing that didn't go too well in the game, which was the fact that once again Rangers conceded early. Once again, Rangers conceded first. Now, obviously, you could take the positive from it and say, yeah, they're conceding these early goals, but they're turning the games round or coming back into the games. They're not losing. But again, it was a bit of a calamitous situation, wasn't it? I mean, first of all, the corner comes from the fact that Tavernier and Goldson, who've been playing together for years now, have a complete breakdown of communication, and it forces Goldson to sort of step in ahead of Tavernier and clear the ball out for a corner.
Yeah.
And when the ball comes in, Balogun doesn't get tight enough to his man. The header comes in. It's a great save by McGregor. All credit to him. He gets down well. But for me, I think letting a goal in at that angle, Bevis Mugabe comes in and he's got very, very little goal to aim for, and McGregor kind of lets it go through him. What was your take on it?
Yeah, and McGregor also in the first instance, I mean, as I was saying at the start, we don't know what the communication is there. Goldson may have shouted, Tavernier may have shouted that they were going to go and get the ball. McGregor obviously comes out, which is why the ball goes behind for the corner, because Goldson's header's misdirected. And then I think with McGregor getting up, I guess, I mean, I know neither of us are goalkeeping experts, but I guess the reasoning would be that because he's got up from that reaction save and he's quick to get up, he probably doesn't have the time to really assess where the space is. And it's one of these things where it's quite it's a bit of a ridiculous finish by Mugabe, but you're right, you shouldn't be beaten there, I don't think. These mistakes, I think, happen in games. There's probably a little bit more of a tendency to focus on them because they're happening so often. I mean, Gary Commodi's piece on our site today is a kind of good discussion about that, but also it ends on the positive that, Rangers have showed a lot of determination in recent weeks, but haven't really showed the ability that they have necessarily to go with it. And yesterday they did both of those things. So as long as they win games, I don't think it's too much of an overriding concern, as much as obviously you don't want your defence to be doing things like that week in, week out. I think it is maybe just when one of these mistakes happen, the next one's easier, and you need a little bit of a break in play to end it. And Tavernier's made a lot of mistakes recently. For the St Mirren goal, he loses a ball in the middle of the pitch, yes, but it's a ridiculous strike, and John Lundstram should do better. For the Aberdeen header, he should do better. So I think if Rangers keep scoring 3-4 goals in games, these things will start to peter out. But it's 11 goals I think now conceded all this season.
Compared to 13 last season.
Yeah, so won't be any records broken this season. I think we can put our money on that.
Yeah, I suppose though what this game does show is that when Rangers click in terms of an attacking sense, they can make these discussions that we're having right now completely irrelevant, can't they? Because if you put 6 past the team, it's almost. I mean, the reason that we're even discussing this is because the Rangers have been conceding silly goals. That's why we're discussing it. Yeah. So it's another one for us to touch on, and just because in the context of the larger season, this has been a situation. If it's just this game, we probably don't even mention this normally because it's just a simple mistake.
Yeah, not absolutely, and you look as well at the players that came in yesterday. Rotation maybe comes into the. I know Goldson and Tavernier have played most games, but in terms of the protection in front of them, in terms of even roles at corners, who knows how much rotation is impacting the players? But again, to turn rotation into a positive thing, Scott Arfield came in yesterday, was excellent. That's his 2nd or 3rd start. I think he'd only started against Malmo, home and away, maybe the Lanarkshire away game. But he was excellent. He gave Rangers exactly what they needed. Made a few good decoy 3rd-man runs. So Calvin Barrie as well at the moment for me is the Rangers left back until Borna Barisic comes back into form, because Barisic, I think when he's not on it, can't give you that one-on-one threat. And Barrie yesterday, you look at the right side dominate the first half, and second half the left side led to the 2 goals or 3 goals actually, and the red card. So that's another huge positive. And Davis coming in, you look at the variety and the variation in that squad, the number of players that can come in and impact something. And this is the first time that Rangers have really had a settled squad for a wee while. And first half of Aberdeen aside, the Bromby game, the St Mirren game, there's a lot of positives to take, and a lot of, if you look at Rangers' trend line, which measures their expected goals and their expected goals against, it looks positive in this kind of last month compared to the last year. So I think Stephen Gerrard said in midweek when I asked him about tactical variation, and he went on to speak about it, and he spoke as well at the end, and he was saying, look, if you listen to a lot of outside noise, you think the world was ending, and he kind of smirked. And I thought it was interesting thinking back to it, because he obviously has supreme confidence in these players. He said as much. He said in that press conference, he defended them when asked about their character, and said it was a pleasure to work with them. And I think that's 1 defeat in the last 50 games in the league. I just think that it was interesting to see how much confidence he obviously has in these players, and he was completely vindicated in a lot of the things he said yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, we're going to call it a day there, Joshua. That was an interesting look back on the Motherwell win, 6-1, of course. We'll be back tomorrow with more detail about whatever's happening in the world of Rangers. If you want to support this video briefing that happens every day, and also in relation to breaking news, please subscribe. So if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and it means you will get notifications whenever we do indeed go live. And of course, our website, therangersreview.co.uk. If you subscribe there for £2.99 a month, you can support top quality Rangers journalism every day. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching.